Professor Marc Lavergne on the broad introduction of this area, Red Sea and Horn of Africa, and particularly from the side of African side. And we have now mutually complementary, presentation experts, and from the Arab side, Gulf side, and the European side, and Professor Lavergne. So would you make a presentation to us about the African side, mainly African side of this very important region, please?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I was tasked to present the general frame of the situation around the Red Sea, but I choose to emphasize on the Horn of Africa, which I know for roughly, no, exactly 50 years now. I kept visits that went along this long period. So I think this is an area which is not so well known. To me, geopolitics is more than international relations. It also takes its roots within the societies and within the milieu that is the natural framing of the areas. And the Red Sea and the Horn of Africa are very special and not so well known. So many things are happening at the moment in this part of the world, which are difficult to understand from an external point of view. So I was tasked to present briefly the fundamentals of the situation in this area. The Red Sea, definitely. I don't know if you can see the PowerPoint, or should I try to activate it?
Would you share with us?
You get it? Okay, fine.
No, not yet. Oh.
Not yet? You don't see it. I don't know how to.
Share screen. Green one.
The green one? Okay. Okay.
Share screen, yeah.
Yeah. Need to be back now. Well, here you are. Here we are. No, I lost. Oh. Yeah.
I think you have to open your presentation first and then share screen. I'm not sure.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah. Wait. Okay, I'm back. Now, screen. Yeah, here we are. Do you see it now?
Yes.
Or not yet? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, you get it? Okay, fine.
So open it full screen, I think you have.
Full screen, okay. Yeah.
Possible.
How is it? You get it full screen?
Okay, just maybe you can continue if Satoshi doesn't mind.
Okay.
This way.
Yeah. Okay, first of all, the Red Sea has been, since the dawn of mankind, kind of a corridor of trade between Europe and the Far East somehow, and through the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean. It has been also crossing between Africa and Asia. Just remember the time of Moses when he crossed the Red Sea with his people to escape the Pharaoh. The Red Sea is a kind of Mediterranean Sea, in fact, because the civilization around the Red Sea is broadly the same, be it on one side or another. It's so even more than the Mediterranean that we know in Europe. is not a border between Africa and Asia. It's a link between these two areas. And the Red Sea is a fault line in terms of geology, which is separating, and it's very deeply entrenched between Asia and Africa. But the people on the seashores, they share the same life, the same customs, the same interests. Those who are behind in the mountains, be it in Yemen or in Ethiopia, they are very different. So what is the major feature of this area is this difference between the seashores with nomads, herders, seamen, people who are open to the world, who are traveling, who don't accept strong powers. They feel very independent. And from Somalia to Sudan or Arabia, the same difference is to be noticed between the highlands behind and the seashores. The highlands are very remote, are closed worlds that are fearing the aggression from the outside, and they are very stable civilizations with kingdoms, sometimes be it again in Yemen or in Ethiopia for ages. So now new states have been built after the opening of the Suez Canal. The colonial powers took root on the seashores because they needed harbors. But they didn't too much enter the highlands because they were not able to, and they had no interest into that. So France, Great Britain, Italy took colonies along the shores, and this increased the difference between the seashores and the hinterland. The hinterland kept with their traditional masters, being the emperor of Ethiopia, or in Yemen, the people who are around the imam who was running the country. So these countries are somehow twofold, and there are first of all this rift between these two sides. On the hinterland, strong kingdoms, but very conservative and not open to the world. And on the seashore, people who are moving freely from one side to another. For instance, I remember a friend of mine in Asmara, in Eritrea. He had 4 women, one in each of those harbors. He was from Saudi, from Jeddah, but he had a wife in Sudan, another in Hodeida in Yemen, and another in Massawa in Eritrea. And this is quite a common feature of the societies in this part of the world. These people move around and they have linked, for instance, if we come back to Ethiopia, the billionaire, Mr. Mohammed El-Amoudi, he is one of the richest men in the world. And he is both Ethiopian and Saudi. That is, he lives in Jeddah, but he is Ethiopian by birth and nationality, or he has both nationalities. And his interest, his view of the world is constructed around the Red Sea. And this is from that part of the world that he developed his activities all around. People are moving, so, and they have flexibility in language and in tradition. On the highlands, it's quite different. I mean, people are not so flexible in their mind. They keep close to their ancient religion, be it Christianity in Ethiopia, which was Christian much before Europe, the 4th century. And on the other hand, Yemen has this special understanding of Islam with the Zaydi sect that is now represented by the Houthi fighters. Another element that should be recalled is that the Red Sea is not a closed world, since when you look at it, in the Arab League, you also integrate Djibouti, Somalia, and even the Comoros Islands on the Indian Ocean. That is, there is no such a thing as a Arab world, so to say, but also a larger world that integrates some other dimensions which are rooted deep in history up to Madagascar, to the south of the Indian Ocean. This is something that is now renewed, revived with the Daesh intervention in Mozambique, in Cabo Delgado, which is a very devastating enterprise by Daesh to counter the exploitation of gas and to use the poverty of the population far from its roots in the Arabic Peninsula or in the Middle East. But still, in this part of the world, you can feel in Zanzibar also that you belong to something as an extension of the Red Sea. So the colonial powers built new states, states like Somalia, for instance, or Djibouti, or Eritrea. These states were along colonial borders, but they integrate the difference that is together the seashores and the highlands. So these countries have all a difficulty to create a nation, to build a state. They are very unstable. And when you look at it, there are strong trends to secession, to separation. And the central states have a lot of difficulties to impose their rules themselves, be it from the central highland, like Sana'a in Yemen, for instance, or like Addis Ababa, the new flower, which was built only 150 years ago to control this vast territory of Ethiopia. These centers, and the same goes for Mogadishu, which was the Italian capital of Somalia, they are in a tremendous difficulty to unite the people and the tribes that are gathered within their territory, because these lands are divided through tribes, clans, confederations, and not only by these split that I mentioned between the seashores and the hinterland. Even in the hinterland, even on the seashores, there are strong divides between the people that don't feel to have much in common. Look, for instance, at this picture of Ethiopia. There are about 80
Marc,
people. Yes.
Press on the slide, because we need to
okay.
see the big slide. Yeah.
Yeah.
Slide. Yeah.
I'm a beginner on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, we missed the previous slide then, but you all know the general overview of the area.
خد بالك من الوقت. خد بالك من الوقت. خد بالك من الوقت. التوقيت. خد بالك.
ايوه انا همشي اسرع. Yeah. So 80 peoples in Ethiopia. You can see on this slide the strong divide between the Muslim communities that are in green and the Christian communities in blue. This is also a major divide in a country like Ethiopia, or even in Eritrea. But we could say the same about Yemen, between the Zaidi and the Shafi'i on the coast. Within the Islam, there are also strong divides within these communities. What I show in Somalia, not to go too much into this problem of Somalia, but there is really an imbroglio with different clans overlapping and fighting each other and refusing to unite within one country. Let's now move to Sudan, because Sudan has also a window to the Red Sea. Sudan is a huge country. It used to be the giant of Africa, and it's now divided also between North and South. What I would emphasize there, it's of course a huge country with a lot of diversity in climate, from the desert to the rainforest, from the north to the south, on 3,000 kilometers. But it's a vast plain. There's no problem between the seashore and the mainland. It's all mainland, and it's a huge space where people move freely, and there are also hundreds of communities, different communities living there, not only in the south, but also in the north. And the south fought for 50 years to be recognized by the center, by Khartoum. I was a friend and a colleague to the one who became the leader of the rebellion of the south, the Sudan People's Liberation Movement. The name itself of this movement shows that the Southerners, they didn't fight for separation, for secession. They fought for the equality of rights within the United Sudan. And they at last obtained independence in 2011. But they kept the name Sudan. They consider themselves as Sudanese as much as the people of the northern Sudan. And it shows that behind this diversity, there is, at least in the case of Sudan, on the contrary, a will to keep close. And still now, Southern Sudan doesn't feel foreign to Northern Sudan and plays a role in the trial to settle the internal problems within Northern Sudan. As we well know, and even those days, there are still very hot problems in Darfur, in the Nuba Mountains, on the Red Sea, and in various parts of Sudan. And what is at stake now is not so much the unity of the country, but the equality between the central regions, which are Arabized and Islamized, and the peripheries, who feel marginalized and frustrated. The same somehow could be said about Southern Sudan, where the independence was taken by a bunch of officers that are now ruling the country very ruthlessly without taking care of the diversity of the population and the needs of this population of Southern Sudan. So this gives scopes to many developments all around the Red Sea and in the Horn of Africa that are not right now for solution. And it seems doubtful that the foreign powers, be it the powers from the Arabic Peninsula, be it the international community, will be able to help solving these problems of unity in diversity, be it in the Horn of Africa or be it in Sudan itself. And the situation is the more dramatic that these countries are from the poorest in the world, and that they need foremost development. And the development trials in Ethiopia with, for instance, the Great Renaissance Dam, as we see, have also risen a lot of confrontation with neighboring powers, neighboring countries. So now the Horn of Africa is also split, and you see some alliances which are very volatile between Kenya entering enlarging somehow the Horn of Africa by being interested in exploiting offshore petroleum oil fields at the border with Somalia. So internal rifts are still to forecast, unfortunately, in the Horn of Africa and maybe in Sudan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marc, for your presentation on African side, domestic and regional issues. And before moving on to Eric's presentation, can I just ask you, Marc, ask you a small question? It's about Sudan. Sudan is part of Horn of Africa, or wider Horn of Africa region, but it's, of course, it's in the Nile Valley country. And now there's of course, there's a conflict between Egypt and Ethiopia. But Sudan, traditionally, of course, it's an Arab country, and separated, seceded south part, and now southern part is seceded. So northern part of Sudan is Arab country, but it's there's some something curious about it, and now that Sudan's position is not always Arab from my point of view. So, but you're expert on this region. What's your understanding of Sudan's position between Ethiopia and Egypt? Is there any any peculiarity in it?
Yeah, this is a very interesting point, because in fact you're fully right. The Sudanese, they didn't solve this question, which is a wrong question in my opinion, of whether they are Africans or Arabs. They are both, and there is no solution to that. It's very strange to notice. I lived for many years in Sudan, for over 10 years at a row. And so I could discuss this with many leaders and with the local population. They all Sudanese, there is a strong feeling of being Sudanese. That's what I mentioned before. But Sudanese feel closer to Ethiopians, to Somalians, in their way of life, in their values, in their, not the religion, not the language, but the individual behavior and the values of music, food, and all what matters really in the relationship between peoples. They are much closer to the Horn of Africa than to Egypt, for instance. And they feel when they go abroad, that is in the Arabic Peninsula, as workers, for instance, that they are not considered as Arabs. So this also reflects in their own sense of belonging to the Horn of Africa more than to the Arab world. They always feel very careful. For instance, we were talking about the recognition of Israel. I really doubt that the Sudanese people feel very much concerned with this Palestinian question. They are more looking now to Western Africa for some part, or to the south, even to Southern Sudan. They feel more involved in the problems of the Great Lakes, of the Chad Basin, of the Sahel altogether. One should not forget that the Islam, even despite Sudan is very close to Saudi Arabia and to the to Mecca, it was Islamized by pilgrims that came all over by foot from Senegal, from Mauritania, from the Maghreb, and they settled in the Sudanese villages, and they took root there, and they brought Islam, which is a very different Islam with the Turuq. This is the brotherhoods from the Egyptian Islam, for instance, which is based on the literature and the literacy and the discussion through Al-Azhar University, of course. They are very special case, and somehow the Arab world is something that they benefit from, but they feel very different. And in fact, they feel it's such a huge country that they don't look too much outside and more to inside.
Thank you very much. So now we move on to our next presentation.